To better understand the MAGA desperation, here on the East Coast, there have always been third-generation profligates who squander their family fortune. These are the grandchildren of wealthy industrialists who grew up surrounded by abundance, but not their own. It was grandpa's, and he paid for their lavish homes, educations, and vacations. And these third-generation wastrels were born with a sense of entitlement. Many of them went off to good schools, and because they didn't know the meaning of hard work, instead of getting a good education at these excellent schools, they joined the right eating clubs, the right fraternities. They hired people to take their tests and write their papers and convince themselves of their own superiority based on the wealth they were born into, as opposed to the future wealth they otherwise would have to earn. Because these wastrels squandered their education, they are left with no choice but to come out of these schools convinced it's who, not what, you know. They gravitate to other non-serious members of their economic class who, because they too are third-generation wastrels, proceed to squander whatever fortune and opportunity that has been bequeathed to them. Soon, the money disappears as the marriages fail, child support, taxes, gambling debts, and back alimony go unpaid, while their American Express cards and line of credit are completely maxed out. But they still consider themselves upper class. They identify as upper class. How couldn't they? They see themselves as upper class, but they lack the one thing that allows them to be upper class, and that is money. So they medicate their denial with drugs and alcohol, and of course, blind rage. Great way to self-medicate, blind rage, while their debt mounts. And because they went to the finest schools and were raised in opulence, they couldn't possibly lower themselves to get a job beneath their perceived and self-deceptive status. They still think certain types of jobs are beneath them. They were born emotionally stunted, and now they're financially stunted, and it doesn't end well for these broken people. And in many ways, that's exactly who these MAGA voters are. They weren't born into a wealthy family, usually, but by virtue of being born white, they consider themselves to the manner born. Some of them might have a sense of entitlement that stems from that 1 year when they earned six figures and thought, well, that's who I am. I'm the guy who earned six figures in 1 year, even though it's been several years since that 1 year that I earned the six figures. And of course, I forgot to pay taxes on those six figures. Doesn't matter. They're still convinced that they're the guy who earns six figures a year, even though it happened once a long, long time ago. They have this sense that a six-figure salary is now owed to them. And they, meanwhile, complain about the social safety net, how they don't want to pay taxes, which they don't. They don't want to pay taxes because people of color and the migrants want handouts. At the same time, these MAGA Republicans are whining because everything isn't getting handed to them. Where's my six-figure job that I had 10 years ago? These are the people who feel they are owed a living. MAGA, this is where the rage comes from. They're the ones who feel they're owed a living. They claim they're all about personal responsibility, but only when it comes to others. When a MAGA voter's life heads south, it's never their fault. It's the fault of the diversity hire who took their job. The MAGA voter is identical to that third-generation wastrel I was just talking about. But instead of their sense of entitlement flowing from being born into wealth, their entitlement basically stems from being white and male. And when they discover being white and male no longer cuts it, that nobody's interested in paying them what they think they're worth, and even worse, dating them, nobody wants to date them because they're zeros, and because they lack emotional and intellectual resources to do anything to fix their financial, emotional, and sexual predicament, these MAGA Republicans look for a leader like Donald Trump to tell them, it's not you, it's them. And them can be anyone. Usually there's a flavor of the day. Them can be anyone just so long as it's never a MAGA voter. Voting for Trump is a counterfeit absolution of personal responsibility cloaked in personal responsibility. It should come as no surprise that Trump loved owning casinos because it's literally taking money from idiots. Trump voters are the same people who walk into a Trump casino convinced it's the height of taste and sublime elegance. They walk into a Trump casino because they've been tricked into calling gambling gaming. It's not gambling, I'm gaming. They have no idea the odds are stacked against them. Instead, they're brainwashed into believing gambling is all about personal responsibility and betting smart, when in fact, there's no such thing as a smart bet. The casino always wins, but they don't know that. MAGA voters are every chain-smoking cab driver who picks me up and takes me to the airport in Las Vegas. And when we start talking, he insists he's a professional gambler, and the only reason he's driving a cab is to get out of the house. Sure, there are very few professional gamblers. I know with poker, you can be a professional gambler. The amazing thing is the casino always wins, and yet the genius, Donald Trump, has owned, 15 casinos? And they all went belly up.
It's time right now for the David Feldman Show. So get